Welcome everyone. So this is our December 4 meeting. In principle, our topic of this meeting would be Spring 2021. What are your plans? We can talk to each other, whoever wants to volunteer and share about what have you learned during fall 2020 that you would not like to do again, or what would you like to do again or improve, any issues, concerns, news, bad news, etc. While we digest, to say the topic and think of ideas to share, maybe I can give the floor to David Marasco. And David would like a few moments to talk about these two items that are written here in your screen, the Sea of Change project. And I don't know if Alexis is coming to our meeting, if she's here right now.
But no, I'm just going to speak for Alexis.
Oh, great.
Okay.
So then, yes, how to correlate better with the peer scholars so that we can have more TYC data maybe in for research. David.
Okay. You folks can read just as well as I can, so I'm kind of happy that Glenda just sort of stuck that up on the screen. Quick and dirty is that sea change is a sort of it's now across many disciplines. It's not just physics, it's chemistry, it's all the associated fields. And what they're recognizing is that departments and institutions are understanding that there are equity and inclusion issues, and that these departments and universities and colleges are trying to put together plans to address this. And this is a way to, the sea change is basically a way to help these institutions put together those plans, and also to recognize, give some level of recognition to people who are doing this and doing this well. So I don't know about you, but when I go to work in a building now, my building is like silver certified because it does so much for just in terms of being sustainable. This is the same idea. If you have got like a really good equity plan and you're implementing it, you can be recognized for putting in the work. Now, this was originally designed for large institutions. So like somebody like University of Michigan would go and say, okay, well, our physics department is interested in working with you, because the reporting and sort of the self-reflection elements have a very high workload associated with them. To the point where if somebody said, would you do this at your place? I'd say no, because my college researcher would not do any of the things that I'd want them to. Not that I wouldn't believe in having a plan, it's that I wouldn't believe in going and working with Sea Change to sort of get all of their I's dotted and their T's crossed. There have been people from two-year colleges who have apparently talked to Sea Change and said, well, is there a version that we could try and be involved in that maybe it's got different levels of reporting, or just a recognition that we're not going to be able to meet the overhead that these other institutions are going to be able to meet. If you're interested in this and would like to talk to the Sea Change people, you should talk to Alexis. She is the program manager for physics. And I'm going to drop her email into chat. Okay.
Okay. Are there going to be maybe talks about that on the winter meeting?
There will probably be Sea Change talks, but again, it's not something that right now is aimed in any way towards two-year colleges, but certainly you could go to a Sea Change talk and say, okay, well, here's what I can pull out of it, and talk to Alexis and say what type of involvement would be possible, okay? And at this point, it would just be explorations and people trying to figure out sort of general frameworks rather than let's sit down and start talking nitty gritty. Okay.
David, do you know another research, another project like this that is looking at diversity? I mean, do we have any other tool, any other instrument that tests or measures diversity and all these other aspects at institutions? Because I think maybe it's the first time I heard of one. So do you know of any other?
Not that's doing this. I believe that this is based off of work that had been done in Great Britain, but I'm not 100% sure. That's kind of the story that I remember. Okay. Certainly we've had things like the Team Up report that came out last year that talks about strengthening the experience for African-American undergraduates in our departments. And you'd also have Step Up, which is aimed towards high school, which is trying to get more young women into physics, but this is different than both of those.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
The second thing that I just kind of want to throw on the table here is I had a chat with Alexis a while ago, and one of the topics that came up was there is sort of increasing interest from the PER community to look at two-year colleges. And for a lot of those researchers, they're really in foreign territory. They probably did not go to a two-year college. They haven't taught at a two-year college, and they don't understand us very well, perhaps. And there are also just some interesting power dynamics. They are at these R1s and we are not. And the question here is, okay, well, what would an ideal working partnership look like if somebody came from an R1 to your college and said, well, let's do research? And of course, the ideal relationship is going to look different for different people, but we were kind of looking at, you know, what would be sort of ground rules or things that you would want to think about when you entered one of these. What would be, in essence, fair and just to you? And at the end of the day, what would make it a good partnership? And there are all kinds of elements here, like authorship and involvement of the two-year faculty in the design of whatever experiment or research was going to be looked at, or just a whole range of issues. So again, if you are interested in talking to Alexis about this, I've put her email into chat. I can also put my email into chat. Feel free to reach out to me also. But I think this is going to become more important as more PR is kind of aimed at two-year colleges. I think that's a good thing that they are starting to understand that the world exists outside of their four walls. But I also want any of these collaborations to be good collaborations and respectful to our faculty and not just basically feed their needs. Okay.
I like hearing that. I've been going to meetings for decades, and I get a talk from a PER person, and I said, well, what about, this is what happens at two-year schools, and I've been trying to get people involved in talking to me and wanting to take data from my school. So it's nice to hear this. I just wish it wasn't during the pandemic. I got that email, I think, from Glenda a few weeks ago or a month ago about one, I think it was out in Colorado. They wanted to collect data, and I'm like, this is, you picked like the worst possible semester in my entire 20-year career to ask me to do this. I've been begging you. And now you decide you want to get involved to take data from my students.
It's a survey exactly about this emergency situation, the stress and all that. So they're trying to look into that exactly.
Yeah, it's nice, but I wish they would take data on how my students are learning compared to four-year school students, because it's not the same. And a lot of times when I try and apply the results to my classes, it doesn't work,
Yeah, I'm gonna paste I have it as a PDF because that's just what I found on my hard drive right now, but it's a look at representation in PER research. It basically shows that two-year colleges were about 1/3 of 1% of all of the research. And it's like, well, I know we're not 1/3 of 1% of all of the physics students out there, right? So I don't remember how old that PDF is. I know that it was recently published within like the past 3 or 4 months. So maybe go to archive and find the more recent article. But yeah, we are completely underrepresented in terms of what PER looks at. I think PER is starting to understand that. And again, let's sort of normalize frameworks that work for everybody and not just them. I think that would be the way I would state that.
Can I ask a question? I'm going to sound really stupid. I don't mean to, but for the C program, my community college is definitely a very highly diverse college. We are one of the largest two-year colleges in the country, and diversity is the name of our game. So this C is very interesting to me, and I don't have a picture of it in my mind, and I was wondering if perhaps you could give an example of how it works at some place. I mean, whether it's 2-year or 4-year, you know, what are specific things that people do is what I'm asking. I don't know if my perspective is different because of where we're at, but I think this is definitely something of interest to us here.
It sounds like you'd be a good person to talk to, Alexis. That's what I'm hearing. Okay. The whole idea would be you would first start off and sort of understand your problem. You'd say, okay, let's look at our students. Let's see where the equity gaps are. Let's see where we need to make progress. So first, you know, do the homework, and hopefully your institutional researcher has done that heavy lifting for you. Then it'd be sit down and try and figure out what an action plan would look like, and they would hopefully give you resources with that and get you connected to other people doing that. And then once you have an action plan, of course, there's implementation, which is just a whole other sort of 9 yards of whatnot. And they'd be looking at that and hopefully helping you out with that too. There was a website there. Could you pop your slide back up, Glenda?
Yeah, I'm doing that in a funny way in a minute. I have too many things open. Hold on a second. Gotta do some cleanup here. Coming.
Thank you, Shahida. Shahida dropped it in comments. So you can go to their website. I'm sure there's an FAQ, and read through that a little bit. And if you're still interested after reading through the FAQ, then certainly reach out to Alexis and say, hey, I'm at a large, diverse 2-year college. I'm interested in learning more about sea change. What might it look like for my institution, given that we probably don't have the resources that Purdue or Florida State or whoever might have.
Okay. Thank you. That helps a lot.
Okay. Anything else, or should we just go back to sort of our normal scheduled programming? Okay, Glenda, it's all you.
Well, it's everyone. What I would like to say is, here we are, and we have a few people coming in a little bit late, but here we go. Our meeting today is, well, it's for you just to share whatever has been happening and new business or issues or concerns or good news of what happened last semester that you would like, this semester that you would like to improve or do again or not do next semester. And if you have any institutional issues or materials, or it's your time to vent and maybe share and get ideas from others. I would like at this moment just to highlight that our next meeting is December 21st, and that one has been scheduled by APT. I don't fully understand, we are still going to have a meeting during the winter meeting, okay? So this is not substituting, the December 21st meeting is not substituting the winter meeting. But I think to bring more awareness to the winter meeting and more attendance, I guess it was a time to ask for all committees to meet, including Yes.
Are you sure about that? I thought that these are actually our committee meetings for the winter meeting.
I am not sure. I did not get that message. It's all APT will record it, and we'll deal with it as if it is a formal meeting with the traditional agenda and all. But
I think these are the official committee meetings for winter meeting 21.
very good. Then that's what it is. Then we'll make it. We're planning to make it quite official like that, but okay. So I'll let them all know that this is really then a month ahead. Okay.
So that would be only for people who have registered for the winter meeting, or?
No, for us, no. These committee meetings and friends of the committee, we always welcome everyone.
So it will be a Zoom meeting, not through the virtual
Zoom meeting, yeah. Okay. Zoom meeting, just like we've done so far. But APT will provide the Zoom address. And
I missed the early bird deadline. It was yesterday, right?
Extended it.
Oh, yeah. They extended it. Good.
It's been extended to the 10th, I believe.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah, I have to register.
Great news. Great news.
I should have not registered. Waited until the 9th, I guess.
One thing I do want to be clear on, the time. In which time zone is that 12:30 to 2:30?
Yeah, okay, very good. It's my
Brenda time zone.
Yeah, EDT. Yeah. But I did not quite choose that. This was the result of our poll. And this was one of the favorite times and date for our poll anyway.
So it goes till, it's 3 hours long?
2 hours?
Or 2 hours? Okay.
Yeah. 12:30 to 2:30 is 3. Or no, I guess it's 2.
They normally are 2 hours. The slot is 2 hours. And yeah, I'll be applying an exam right at that time. So Tom Herring will be mostly coordinating this meeting. Yeah. Anybody would like to say anything? This is take over. Anybody would like to share anything? We don't have a very rigid agenda for today's meeting. David.
I hope this extends into the spring. We'll be doing all online in spring again. I noticed this term that I had way more women than I normally have in my physics classes. And I don't know what that's a function of. Maybe doing a physics class online where you can turn off your camera and be a little bit more anonymous makes a physics class maybe a little less threatening. I don't know, I can make up 100 different theories, but I saw a lot more women in my classes in the fall, and I hope that extends towards the spring and then just on after that. But I'm interested if anybody else saw that or noticed that.
No, didn't see that.
I have a lot of women in my class, and they're the best students in the class, definitely. Yeah. And that's very encouraging.
Yeah, I was going to say, I haven't seen more women, but in my calc-based M&I mechanics, the top 2 students in the class happen to be women. And I mean, they are just tearing it up.
I'm seeing more and more in our introductory classes, but I'm not seeing any in my higher level classes. The higher level classes I had this semester, out of 3 sections, just one a female, and she ended up dropping.
Wow.
She was excellent. She ended up dropping because of COVID. First, her children had it, then her husband had it, and I'm kind of concerned what may have happened with her husband, because that's when she fell off. Yeah, but in my lower level classes, I'm seeing a lot more women. So that's why it concerns me. I don't see them moving on to the classes. It's like, why isn't that happening?
Is it possible they're pre-meds?
It is possible. Some of them are pre-meds, yes. And so maybe they're taking their higher level at the 4-year instead of at the 2-year, which is very possible. But I'd like to see more of them in my higher level classes. My higher level classes are usually, 98% men. But in my lower level classes, I'm seeing 50–60% of the classes women are is female, and so that's really good to see, because that's relatively new. It wasn't always like that, but they're not going to the higher level, so I'd like to make that happen.
When you're talking about higher level, are you talking about calculus, physics, or quantum mechanics?
Calculus.
Oh, okay.
I'm in a 2-year. I'm in a 2-year. We don't do quantum.
Well, that's what I was thinking, but
Well, I think they are moving up to the calculus base because they're probably pre-health. So I have a lot of women in the pre-health, but they generally, you can't really convert them into engineering or physics students.
Right.
Yeah, so I think that's probably why they're not going up there.
Yeah.
I usually have, out of about 30 students, 2 women who are going into engineering or something related to that, and they will carry through to the 3rd semester of calc-based. This year started with 5 out of approximately 40 in the mechanics course. They stayed with it, they did well. They were particularly annoyed with the online setup because they could not, or 2 of them are mothers, and said that in the online system, there was no way to separate at-home environment from school environment, and they could not keep their kids away from the computer screen while taking courses and while studying. And so although they were willing to participate, they had certain difficulties, and voiced them to me several times, that also they found communicating with 25 students at once very difficult. A lot of my students said that. Breaking into breakout rooms of 3 to 5 students and doing everything in groups of 3 to 5 students would have been greatly preferred. And I tried that a little bit here and there, trying to see how it worked. And almost all of the students liked that, except the ones that did not do the homework. And I don't think they would have really cared how it was done. But when everybody was together, for that sort of student, it's easier to hide amongst the congregation. But they were the ones that the women in the class most strongly voiced that it was difficult to interact with classmates. And
my students didn't want to interact with the classmates. They kept their microphones off and their video off. I had breakout rooms, and I got really frustrated with the breakout rooms until I sort of changed my tact, which was, it's fine if you don't want to work with anyone else in the breakout room. It's fine if you keep your microphone and camera off. But when I come in there, please ask me anything you want to ask me. It doesn't have to be the assignment I gave you or the activity. Let's just talk physics. And that seemed to help a little bit, so people would ask some other questions. But it's funny that I didn't have that. I didn't have that desire to be in the breakout rooms and the small groups communicated to me at any time.
One thing that worked for me, I broke them into groups at the beginning of the semester, created groups within our Canvas system, and they were communicating with each other during the semester using that, where I didn't have to break them into breakout rooms during the semester or during our meetings. And it seems to be working. Obviously, not everybody participates. That's the drawback. And there is no way for me to force them to do that. But the ones that are interested will be there, and they're very active. So that's a solution you might want to look into if you want.
So is your class synchronous or asynchronous?
Asynchronous.
Yeah, all my classes are synchronous.
Yeah,
mine too.
In fact, it's our students. So our students prefer the synchronous classes.
Mine voted for the other way. I have a couple of military folks who could not make. They got deployed and they would lose the class, so we decided to help them out.
Yeah, no, that's good. I wish more of our students like the asynchronous, maybe, but you know.
Most of my students preferred and voted for synchronous. Said that asynchronous, it didn't feel like anyone cared about them, is how they said it. Yeah. And as a result, they didn't feel like what they did mattered until the grade was received. And
sorry.
Yeah.
I would add that I do have meetings, live meetings with the students, but it's not to go over lecture. It's mostly Q&A, show them the simulations for labs and stuff like that. So I do meet with them on at least once a week, but those are mostly for Q&A, not to present lecture. I have taped lectures that I put on the Canvas of me solving problems and some of the videos that I found on YouTube to help them with that. The other thing that helped a lot this semester for asynchronous is I adopted the OpenStax books, and there are links in there for animations and videos and solved solutions, so that helped a lot.
I know my students like the way we have it set up also, because all of the lecture, everything is all pre-recorded. It's in the modules, and I meet with them 2 hours a week. All of our sections meet with our students 2 hours a week for the lab, and the students are required to do the lab during that meeting time. And so that way they can ask the instructor questions while they're working on the lab. And what we've done is to encourage more discussion between the students, is that instead of answering the students' questions when they ask them when they're working on the lab, we're using Pivot, by the way. And we use some of the Pivot labs, and some of our labs are kits that we put onto Pivot. So they're always using Pivot, but they use it differently every week. And so that's why having the teacher there is very helpful. But we've instructed our instructors, instead of answering the questions, is to kind of deflect the question to other students. And so when a student says, what about this or what about that, I'll say, hey, what did somebody else think, or what did somebody else do, or how did you approach it? And so there's a lot of interactivity going on during that, during the lab because of that. So that's worked very well for us. So the only thing I'm hearing from my students in terms of negativity is some of them are saying, I'm just not designed to be an online student. I need to be on campus. I need that discipline that I have to physically be there. I have to physically be paying attention, or I know my teacher's going to give me a dirty look. And so it's that kind of stuff that I'm hearing from some students, but the majority of my students, particularly my good ones, say they do like the setup. They like knowing that they're going to see me once a week. They like knowing it's not a lecture because they're going to go to sleep anyway. It seems to be working out, having a little bit of contact and having everything else online available.
They mentioned to me that they really enjoy having the videos because they can stop it wherever, they can repeat it whenever. And, you know, for those who want the visual, it's there. And some of them, for some reason, are able to download the transcript. Has anybody experienced this? They find the transcript and they try and solve the problem while reading the words that I'm saying. I've never heard of this before till this semester.
I've seen that, but I personally don't know how they access a transcript, but I have seen it at other websites myself. I'm like, I wonder how they get that transcript there.
It must be a software, because mine are hosted on YouTube.
Mine are hosted on YouTube too.
So, and I know they're transcribed, but I didn't know that you can download that file unless you're the owner. It doesn't matter to me. I do tell them there are mistakes, so take all the words in context, right? Because YouTube sometimes like to put words in our own videos that we didn't speak.
Let me jump in on that because we just had a departmental discussion. We've been doing virtual labs and creating them, and instructors have used various kinds of ways of supplementing their regular lecture. What we just ran into was that our accreditation board is enforcing the Americans with Disabilities Act provisions, and that means that if you do anything that you post, you must have it with closed captioning. Now, we had that with the labs, but it also goes with essentially any video and so forth. One of the ways that is done, it turns out YouTube video, Zoom video, Google Meet, and VidGrid offer ways of doing what you were describing because it's the first cut. Now, what we've discovered is like you, that the first cut's pretty crappy and you got to go back in and edit because the sentence may not make any sense. And there may be words that were translated incorrectly, but we're saying that we're going to have to go back, and it's a tremendous burden now. If you can imagine your PowerPoint presentation that, you know, that was provided you by someone, now you have to close caption it.
I was going to just say it's not strictly to videos anymore. If you have a table in a lecture note that you put on, a screen reader needs to know the heading for the table. If you use different colors, you need to be careful because of contrast issues for visually impaired students. So that's why mine are default black font and color and size. And then all my tables have a header that shows on the page so that not just the screen reader can see it, but the visually abled students will see it as well.
So again, at this point, if you're not already doing the closed captioning on everything, the implication is even though that when we return to in-class instruction, that this is a piece that we probably should have been doing all along, but it really changes the nature of the way we teach. So we're going to have to be looking, and typically in a live class, you know, if you've got somebody with a disability, you've been presented the documentation and you know which kind of disability roughly that it is, and you can know that that's what you got to worry about more than anything else. But in this case, they're actually wanting to see primarily that you've made the effort. It isn't that your translation is a clean one, but that you have recognized that you can't ignore the ADA.
So what I've been told on this, and this is something I was told probably at least 5 years ago, so I don't know how fresh this information is, but anything that is could be viewed as a permanent artifact, meaning you use it in more than one class, you really have to go through and do the transcription. And at least at the time, the YouTube transcription was not up to par. Hopefully their AI has gotten better and the transcription has improved. But when I was getting this information, they said YouTube is not good enough, okay? If it's something that could be considered to be disposable, in other words, I said something in front of a class, it got recorded and I posted that recording, but that was only basically saying this is what happened on this day and time and I'm not going to use that recording again, then it doesn't have to be at the same level just in terms of going through and having a good, clean transcript. So if you're doing synchronous and it's just like, okay, I record my lecture, that's what happened today, and 6 months from now, I'll give my mechanics lecture again, but I'm not simply going to say, watch this recording from 6 months ago, then you're fine because it's just, in essence, a disposable recording. If you use it more than once, then you have to do the ADA stuff and bring it up to code.
That's interesting because in the spring, since I'm doing all this online synchronous lecturing, I was going to get Camtasia. and record what I'm doing for myself to save for later in case I would need to use it sometime, record my lectures. And so I've been using Notability on my screen, and I have some sort of pre-written notes, and then I sort of narrate them, and then I add some other stuff to it. I ask them questions, but would I have to stick them with just black ink on my Notability notes? And then if I inserted a figure or something from the text, I have to put a label on it or something for their screen reader? Is that what you're saying?
It's called an alternative text, I believe.
Yeah.
So if I'm writing it out by hand, can their screen reader even read that, recognize my handwriting and convert that into what that image is saying?
I don't know.
Okay.
My guess is it's probably the program that's being used. My guess is some might be able to, but others won't be able to, because I don't think all the screen readers are the same program.
So if I typed it out in Notability instead of writing it, would that be better? If it was like text, typewritten text, yeah. Okay.
Or provide a transcript of,
right.
You know, like a linkable transcript of what's on the notes if you want.
Okay, and I think David had something to add to that.
Your college has plenty of staff trained in all of this.
Maybe not at my college.
Well, I would hope so, because otherwise somebody is going to come along and say ADA, and then your college is going to be in trouble. So
oh
they
yeah, I
might
know.
have plenty of people, but they've got one person.
My college keeps a very tight budget, so I doubt they have any. We've asked actually for help before. Some people have told me and they haven't gotten any, so I'm not sure.
Also, if you have Canvas, Canvas has a good ADA accessibility checker.
Yeah, we're stuck with D2L right now for the next couple of years. Yeah.
Yeah,
I was trying to help.
No, I appreciate it. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone, for your comments. I appreciate that.
Yeah, we use Canvas also. Canvas is very helpful that way. But I know personally, I'm in agreement. I think our schools need to hire somebody to deal with this, because I mean, for me, when I make my lectures, for particularly my higher level classes, normally our lectures are 4.5 hours a week. So when I pre-record them the way I've been doing, because we're online, I'm not doing that. I'm not, you know, recording a lecture I'm doing in the classroom. I'm pre-recording and I'm thinking, okay, I want this to be good for the future. It takes me 20 hours to make a 4-hour lecture. And that's without the closed captioning. That's just me editing out all my ums and ahs because I just can't tolerate them in the video. And going back and, you know, restating something I said, it's just the editing process itself. I make 20 hours to make my lecture so that I'm not embarrassed by them. And then now I'm thrown on top of it, I'm supposed to close caption it. And I did a couple of closed captionings, and that itself took hours. As I'm sitting there listening to myself and retyping because the translator didn't get it all right. It's like you were saying, it's not perfect. And I'm sitting there having to, you know, redo all this, and it's just more hours on top of it. I'm like, I don't feel like a teacher anymore. I feel like I'm some technician in some film laboratory somewhere that I'm spending my whole day cutting film. And I really do think that the schools need to take some onus or responsibility here and help us out. I mean, I have no problem. I understand the need for it and I support it, but the amount of time, the sheer amount of time, it's not like, oh, it's 1 or 2 lectures and we do it and we're done. I mean, we are constantly changing what classes we're lecturing and things like that. The sheer volume of work, I think somebody's just not looking at that, not seeing how much work we actually do. And so I do think schools really need to step up and help us with these kind of issues. Just hire somebody to do the closed captioning for us. I mean, for me, it's like, I'm happy to give my video to somebody and say, okay, you closed caption it. You fix all the errors that the transcriber is making. And I'm happy.
Can I weigh in on that? So I'm making videos of my lectures and I'm posting them on YouTube. And I had tried that years ago and the closed captioning was horrible, but now it is in fact way better. And it may possibly be, you know, some voices work better than others, but I've found that it's like 98% correct, including scientific terms. I've been really pleased. And it's also, there are places where I can kind of, when I go back and check and I can see where something didn't work, it's because my voice sort of tailed off. And then that's bad. That was bad on me, and I should work on that, because it probably, even in an in-person lecture, that wouldn't be understood correctly. So I've been super pleased with the closed captioning with YouTube for my purposes. Transcripts, I don't know. I'm dropping the ball on that, but the closed captioning on YouTube is much, much better than it used to be. Sorry, David, I'm going to cut a little bit in front of you. I wouldn't also worry about the ums and ahs, because we do them in class, in person. One thing I told myself is I'm gonna when I do my videos, I'm gonna show them that I'm still human, right? I'm not gonna go in and correct every and ah, because I do that in class. So my recommendation is you can save a lot of those 20 hours if you don't fix those. We do them.
I did talk to my students about that though. So my first videos, I didn't edit them. And the one thing is I'm finding very different is because I don't have a live audience, I do speak very differently. I and make all these speech impediments when I'm recording, but when I'm speaking in front of a live audience, I don't make as many mistakes. I don't know exactly what's causing that, the eye contact. When I lecture on campus, I try not to talk at my students. I try to interact with my students. And I think that's the difference, where when I'm in a recording video, there's nothing to interact with. So I'm just trying to relay this information and try not to sound monotone. And that's what's creating that thing that I don't normally do. And my students told me that the and ahs were distracting to them. They said they liked it when I cut the videos. They said that they were impressed with me editing my videos. They said I sounded more like a YouTuber, and they liked that because I take out all the silent gaps as well. So the video keeps moving. There's no stalling in the discussion. And the students say they like that. They say, you actually sound like a YouTuber. We like YouTubers. So
I think it's the YouTuber thing more than the content that they like.
Exactly. And so if it gets them to listen to it, because I sound like a YouTuber, I'm happy to do it, but it's taken me 20 hours a week to sound like a YouTuber.
Yeah. You helped me to realize that how blessed I am, because my students are more patient than your students, because my accents and everything, they bear with that, and they appreciate more about the knowledge itself. And what they suggested, one thing is they wanted to have some combination of a long one to cover 1 hour long, and with a short one with each concept. So when I started to have just a whole 1 hour long session, and with a smaller portion of one question and one demonstration or the lab itself. And then that is much easier to edit if you need it. And the students said it is much more easier for them, to understand and to save their times.
I'm not a PowerPoint person, but I was watching a talk at the summer meeting last year, and the person was using PowerPoint and had somehow turned on, and I actually asked them about it later, and they had turned it on by accident, but they had turned on live transcripting, and it was just the microphone on their computer was going through PowerPoint and was generating a transcript in real time. And this was a technical talk, and it was like 98% accurate. And I was just amazed. So I would love to hear that YouTube has gotten much better over the past 5 years, but even if it hasn't, there are tools that you probably have access to that you don't know about that are actually pretty dang good at this.
YouTube will allow you to change the transcription, and they give you periods of time. So it's not the whole video. You can go like from 5 to 10 seconds, see the words, change them as you want. So it has gotten a lot better. And that's one reason why I picked it. We have an English instructor who got us all hooked on it. So it has gotten a lot better. It's free, which is a plus, and you can edit it, which is another plus, in my opinion.
I would just remind everyone that we're about to get out of this, and we won't be having to deal with volumes of videos unless you want to. So I think the important thing is to think of, the future where we're back in class.
Are we sure about we will get out of this and get back to class?
I am, because a lot of students have said they will not keep with it if it continues going.
Because we had our college Senate meeting, and there our president mentioned something like that we will, so somebody said, when will we go back to normal? And he said, there is no normal now. This is our new normal. So that got me thinking, is it something that academics is thinking about? It saves colleges a lot of money that so many people are not on campus. They're saving on, facilities and all those things. So I don't know if our college is thinking that way, where they will like to have a lot more online presence than in person. But that's for sure that they said, well, whatever you had it's gone now. Now there will be new normals. I don't know what those new normals will be.
Most administrators have been wanting that for a long time. If you look at them balancing their budget, we are the pricey item that they would like to cut down on. I mean, at our community college, we have an excessively large number of adjuncts because we won't hire full time to fill up the slots. So the administration has been that way for decades. So to be able to keep the price tag down is something they wanted. They wanted distance learning, before this ever hit. And they were advocating that each department begin creating a distance learning course here, there, and yonder. And now, of course, we're forced into it. And the question is, will they allow it to revolve back to where it was?
My college president said that when she talks to other college presidents, the feeling in the room is that we're in year one of a 3-year plan. And we don't know what it's going to look like at the end of those 3 years, but we should be very cautious about this idea of, oh, there's a vaccine, and then in the fall, everything will be looking like it did before. It's going to be a transition, even with a vaccine, before we get back to robust face-to-face offerings.
I'm reminded of different styles of learning, and the fact that what we're doing, addressing ADA, for example, forces us to address different ways that different people learn. And it's something we probably should have done all along, but I know when I first started teaching, I taught to the way I thought I learned, which somebody learned a different way. Well, they need to learn the way I did. And we saw that in gosh, I've forgotten her name, the book that was out, They're Not Dumb, They're Different. That people have different learning mechanisms. And one of the things that's happening with this thing great experiment we're doing is we are, like it or not, forced outside our own comfort zone to find other ways of teaching stuff because we can't do it the way we're used to. And it may be when we go back, they're going to be demanding, so to speak. Our students would really like to see the options of hearing it a different way or seeing it a different way.
Mm-hmm. I agree with you. The other thing is our college went ahead and they adapted something called flexible work policy, where not only teaching, but the staff can also say that I want to work from home, and they're okay with it. So I think it's something that they want to adapt as a model. I don't know about if students start complaining and saying, well, we don't like online learning, but there is something they're telling us that you have to have flexibility where even if you are teaching in-person class, you have to have things available for students so that if they prefer not to come, then they can use that.
And I see this as really going to be something that looks different at larger places than smaller places. I would expect my institutions large enough so that we could actually split up, and I'd be like, okay, I'm going to teach mainly face-to-face, but my colleague is going to teach a whole bunch of online classes. But of course, if you're at a smaller place, then you're going to have to do both.
And testing is going to be completely different once this is gone. I mean, we've already talked a couple of times on different way that we've adapted to testing our students. I only see that continuing after the pandemic, especially what David just said. If we have two different modalities for teaching the same section, that is going to necessitate two different testing options, and the students are going to go to the one they think is probably easier to.
Speaking of testing, I missed that session when you were talking about the testing. Glenda, would you mind to tell us what kind of options we talked?
What kind of options about? I'm sorry, typing over here. So,
I think it was one of the earliest ones once we started meeting. I believe Chris talked about different ways for testing students.
Very well. It was Chris, it was our friend Reagan. Reagan also has a project where she gives them the students the freedom. You're going to create a question, but it has to match all these boxes. So she had a sort of a rubric where the students have to match all those boxes inside a question, etc. It was almost like a project, and it made the way of testing the students very unique and prevented a lot of cheating, etc. So you can find that on the website of our committee. If you go to resources and then you go to all the recordings and information about the meetings we had during the first 3 months of COVID. So it's all in there, and it's a talk. There were many, but there was one specific talk, I think it was mid-April, about tests.
Our college has been started to using the analog testing for the proctoring system. Yeah, and we studied in the one course during the summer, and there was lots of robust and some problems, but IT started to clear that up, and now we have a better connection with the homework sites, so like WebAssign and Pearson. We start to have the third-party testing as well, but still, IT pointed out that there are possibility to have the cheating in the lockdown browsers, and then using the webcam proctors. So if you can find a better way, please share with us.
A couple of ways that worked for me. I think in one of the meetings I talked about including writing assignments as part of the exam.
Yes.
As far as I know, those are not checkable yet. And then
they are.
They are?
Yeah.
Okay. So that will change. The second exam, I put pictures and just asked the question. They were not words. I had a setup, and I said, find the acceleration of a system. That, as far as I know, is still uncheckable.
It is to some extent. It's the hardest to check. But what students can do is they can take an image of the image and upload it to Chegg, and a tutor during the exam can solve the problem for them. I found that because I was doing that with my exams, and I found all my exam pictures on Chegg. I was so mad because I spent a lot of time on those questions.
I watermark my images now. So I ask a question, there's the image, and the image has got a watermark that says, this is an exam question, students are not allowed outside help.
Can I share something, please? So I created some questions for my E&M test. It was an image, and just like that, Michael, you were talking about image and said, calculate this. They took a picture of that. It was on Chegg Study. So Chegg Study is where you contact a tutor and they solve the exam for you right then and there while you are taking the test. So I made quite a lot of noise. On Twitter, I tagged Chegg and I included the images. So Chegg contacted me and they were like, we are really sorry about that. We try to, tell students we discourage cheating. So we have started a new platform. It's called Chegg Faculty. And they invited me to be part of the beta testing. So I am on Chegg Faculty now. You have to go there 48 hours before your test and upload your test. And it can only be 6 hours long. During that time, if a student tries to request answer to that question, Chegg will refuse that. But after the 6-hour period, Chegg will provide the answer. So I'm using that for my exams now.
Because they care so much.
Yeah, well.
A little more, probably other reasons than that.
And I'll note that Chegg went out to large departments and basically said, we'll offer this service. But now what they're also doing is they're building this huge collection of tests. So they are doing this in their own best interests.
And it's not just Chegg. I mean, we're offering a lot of lip service to Chegg, but Course Hero, there's Quizlet, there's Study Pool, there's 24-hour answers. And some of these people are staffed by phenomenal physicists from around the world, which is amazing to me.
Are they hiring?
Yes.
Chegg is hiring.
They are.
I could imagine if I was helping someone with a test question I wrote, that would be pretty ironic.
Oh, that would be weird beyond belief.
I guess I guess on a positive spin, I really think if you really want to give a traditional test, the only way to do it is to be sitting in the room with them. And none of these systems, even HonorLock or anything, can really substitute for that. So perhaps there is some longevity to this face-to-face learning that I think all of us are proponents of. And I think even our students, even though they aren't as vocal, they would prefer, many of them, to be in class than to just be at home looking at a computer if they could avoid that.
The ones who are interested in learning, definitely.
And I want to give a shout out to David. About a month or two ago, I found this link on YouTube for Foothill College lecture demos, and I've been using a bunch of those. And I didn't realize that was your school until I saw your email today. So thanks for all your help this semester.
That's not me, that's my colleague, Frank.
Oh, okay. Give him a high five for me. Because you do a lot of the same demos that I do, so it's really helped out a lot.
Frank is awesome.
We have that in our website of the TYC too, and Frank posted all of those. So, Joel, that was a news to you. You're sincerely surprised about Chegg? The world is complicated.
I knew about Chegg. I just didn't know that they could, get something in real time. I didn't know that that was part of the Chegg experience. I knew that they could, Google and find solutions and things like that, but I didn't know.
But it's gotten much faster because there's a lot more data already out there. You can search for a question and find 20 different examples of it being solved, not just on Chegg. Even if it's similar to a problem that has existed somewhere, a lot of it, you can just Google something and get answers to a lot of different similar problems with the math. And if you have somebody who knows how, all they have to do is change the numbers, stick the new numbers in and send it.
I ran into a couple of situations back in the spring where students presented solutions that solved the problem, but they used different notation.
Yes.
For the quantities. And I thought, aha, you didn't write that. And so I didn't give them credit for that. I just wonder, can campuses not block Chegg? And I know that doesn't do any good for, the remote students, but I mean, on campuses, could IT not block Chegg and these other?
Not only they cannot block, our bookstore, which is run by Barnes & Noble, is advertising Bartleby, which is their answer to Chegg, on our college bookstores page where they go look for textbooks. Right there's a little thing that flashes and says, sign up for Bartleby, you only pay this much per month and you get all the homework solutions. So we made a lot of noise and we had that removed. But it's just, if you block one, as somebody mentioned, there are a million other things they will find.
I think it's time to start flooding them with incorrect solutions.
Well, another thing you can do with a site that is blocked is if you go through, what is it called? Yahoo, for example. Quite often you can access a site through Yahoo and you're accessing it, but you're not really accessing it, so the blocker won't block it. Google goes directly to it, but Yahoo, the address is always yahoo.something/ what you searched for. So it isn't really www.chegg.com or whatever it is. And so the blocker won't block it. I've known of 6- and 7-year-old children who are much better at this than I am.
So Chegg is a very popular one, with the most popular one. Shahida is just a beta version and it's not open to all faculty, right?
That's what they told me.
It will be open, however, soon, maybe.
They didn't, I don't know, but yeah, they sent me a web page. I went there, I created an account, then they had to verify my account. It took like 4 days to figure things out. And yeah, because I found, I do labs on Pivot Interactives and I modify them and add some of my own analysis questions. So the other day, just for fun, I did a Google image search for something that I had created, and it was on Chegg Study. Somebody said, oh, I am dying, help me, I cannot figure out this. So people are writing their lab reports, and because it is not plagiarism, Blackboard Safe Assign cannot really figure out that it's plagiarized, but it is cheating, right?
Oh yeah.
One thing that I found that online sites don't do well, how shall we say, provide well. And students who tend to like cheating avoid these questions or sometimes just don't answer them. Where I'm not asking for them to solve the problem so much as explain how they would solve the problem and why they believe it would be a good way to do so. And good students can do this quite well. Students who have studied actually find it takes less time than going through all the mathematics. But students who are looking up the answer, what they will tend to do is just solve the problem copied from somewhere, which is not anywhere near what I asked them to do. And some will even admit, well, that's not what the book said the answer was, or that's not what the computer said it was. And having to explain yourself is not yet something that's easily available.
That was one of the explain your answer question that ended up on Chegg Study.
Yeah.
So I'm sure they provided everything else to the tutor there and they kind of came up with some kind of, I cannot figure out who did that. So, but Joe Hafner, I think we need to talk to you about the oral exams, because they announced for my class that I will do oral exams. And there was one panic attack where a student cried for at least an hour. And I just gave up. I said, I will not do the oral. So I think I will have to talk to you how you are managing that.
I put a link to my blog post on this.
I'm reading it right now.
Chat earlier, and I have an FAQ in there. And send me questions, and I will add to the list of frequently asked questions in that blog post. I will update that. So if you have questions about any of this, let me know.
Okay, thank you.
And if it makes anyone feel better, or I'm throwing this out there just for amusement purposes. I signed up for a Chegg account a long time ago as a student so I could understand how students were using it. So I've been a member of Chegg for a very long time. And recently another faculty member asked, does anyone have a Chegg account? Because I think all my stuff is on Chegg, but I have no way to check. So I changed my password and let him say, yeah, go ahead, use my account. Chegg figured out that I let somebody else use my account. They froze my account. In other words, Chegg is having a problem with students cheating them.
Yes.
And now they're freezing accounts. So now I get, I received a whole bunch of emails from Chegg saying that they are having such a huge issue with students cheating on them that they only allow students to use a register 1 or 2 devices for their account. After that, they can't use other devices.
Interesting that cheating is not allowed, but what's being provided is okay.
Yes, I found that extremely amusing.
Well, and it also makes it so 6 people can use 1 account, which is not to their financial benefit.
Exactly, but they don't mind messing with us teachers who are to teach, you know, and assess the students' learning. So I just find the hypocrisy just beyond belief.
So there's no good solution yet for this testing. Well, we try everything, but apart from being in front of them and being proctored live, or the oral questions, of course.
Yeah. But another thing throws them off is if I have a problem I used last year, and then this year I changed the last sentence rather than the first sentence. The computer, that when it searches, it tends to search the first 10 to 12 words. So it finds last year's question. This year I asked for acceleration. Last year I asked for velocity. And then they will solve for velocity. And I will have to say, you didn't even read the problem. You get no credit.
They know what you meant, Ken.
Yeah. And that sort of thing does throw off such things because it's too simple. But you have to redo it every year. You can't use the same questions 2 years in a row.
just want to share something else. I'm using McGraw-Hill Connect for one of my courses, and they have these process-oriented problems where, for example, it's a statics course, engineering statics. And if we are doing truss analysis, they provide the picture of a truss, but there are 18 steps that they must go through to answer the questions. And even the best students, they struggle with it because there is so much, you know, information they have to provide on the process they use that it's not really checkable.
I've heard of situations like that where you have one thing and you work around that one thing. The entire test focuses on that one item, but you may look at 40 different, or well, like 15 to 20 different aspects of that one item. And that is hard to post a cheating on because there is no just one answer. You have to do so much. And then most of the work, most of the credit is based on the work that's shown. But they're hard to write. They're very hard to write.
We are at 10 minutes past 5. I am in Crispo if anybody wants to say something urgently now. Otherwise, we're going to close the meeting. And I remind you, we have a December 21st meeting. And this will be recorded. This will be in the YouTube channel of the committee of Two-Year College. You can access that on the website of the Two-Year College committee. Anybody would like to say anything else before we close the meeting?
Thank you, Glenda, for getting this organized.
Thank you for organizing. As always, these are always helpful, at least to me.
That post, I was going to take me several days to read your post, Joe. It's enormous, but it's very, very informative. Yeah. Thank you, everyone. Take care.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.